The only thing I got out of that story was that I wasn't invited. But what I am invited to is this opening match here. We are Eternal Gaming versus GrandXur. At least Overwatch doesn't let me down. And it's going to be Ryan Goats coming up from both sides. And because it is both Goats, I've been let down by Overwatch.
I mean, I was going to say, just you wait. One of these teams is going to let you down. But at any rate, opening skirmish, relatively even, but for Papillon taking a bit too much damage, and now that does give We Are Eternal the opening in the fight, even as GrandXur made the slicker rotation onto the point. Good counter trade on Ison, but the damage has already been done. That will be We Are Eternal getting the point as it unlocks. Especially
when you look at the differences in ult charge as well, 80% now for Ison, only 17% for Papillon, and this is off the back of a couple of early kills at Ison, despite going down himself. He manages to really push ahead in terms of this race, and GrandXur falling ever further behind. At least they're slightly ahead comparing Hamzy to Jasmine.
That's really what We Are Eternal have at their disposal here. That little bit of a lead. Oh, nice push back. And he did drop that shield of Papillon. Good rotation. Oh, huge catch. A few members exposed out of that shield. And honestly, Ison spotting that opportunity so huge and already starting to match Papillon again in ult charge.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of damage coming through for We Are Eternal. Get the full cleanup, only losing one member on the own side. And for GrandXur, when you look across the board and the other members are not too far behind, Ison might overtake Papillon here again, but for everyone else, I mean, it is at least somewhat comparable. Hamzy still very comparable to Jasmine. GrandXur are definitely not out of this one yet.
They're certainly not, but they do still need to connect with those ultimates. Yeah, they're out for the time being. But, I mean, not down. It's the other way around, down but not out.
Just going to have to wait for that respawn there. Luckily, or really fortunately, didn't lose anybody else. Unlike the previous match, which we did see no big cleanup here, We Are Eternal Gaming just have to be happy with that one kill into Hugo, and GrandXur going to be happy not to lose anyone, but 6 full ultimates for We Are Eternal now.
Yeah, feeling festive with that Christmas tree. Going to commit the rally. There's the shatter, and again, that's all they're going to need. Well, they're going to commit a grab as well. That forces the transcendence from Hugo. GrandXur have kind of weathered the worst of it now. Ison's got another shatter, could you believe it? And has already committed it. And that's the one that takes GrandXur by surprise. That's the one that's going to have them ringing out the silver bells. We Are Eternal. It's murder time in the city.
And GrandXur were just looking to survive there. They had the Hugo Transcendence to counter out the initial shatter. Marley then drops the beat to counter out Jasmine's Graviton Surge, but they did not account for the second shatter to come through from Ison. Meanwhile, both Papillon and Hamzy still waiting to ult themselves.
And this is so huge now, already
Papillon's not going to do it.
Papillon. The grab does finally come out of Hamzy, but no follow-up. It's going to be Silvercoin diving for the point, but man alone on there. Speaking of Marlon, pun didn't work. But at any rate, GrandXur, the few members that went for the contest, will get cleaned up. Carter actually got back in the mech. Silvercoin going to have to throw out a shove to strike, but not going to get back in the mech. Overtime ticking out. Papillon comes in with a shatter, with the sound barrier to counter it, and he doesn't get any kills alone as he is. Marlon off the backside, forced out, and that's going to be a 100-0 shutout on Night Market.
And that's one of those matches and one of those games where you just don't get to see the other team play the game at all. Let's take another look at this combo being used here. The first shatter going to come through from Ison directly onto all members except for Hugo, who does manage to get the healing in there in time. The Graviton Surge to follow, immediately counter out by Marlon very soon on the sound barrier. But here's, you just see the kind of damage coming through from Ison, how quickly he gets that second shatter up that decisively ends that engagement. And for Papillon and Hamzy, just never really getting the chance to fight back, and that's what GrandXur needed, and they couldn't do that until the very end, until it's too late.
Now moving on to Gardens. This is where GrandXur are going to need to step it up. I mean, they got no headway in that whatsoever, not in the opening skirmish, not in any of the subsequent ones. So, let's see if they can make this opening skirmish play out just a little bit more favorably.
And it's going to be kind of going onto the Doomfist here, so there's definitely going to be a bit of a mix-up coming up from We Are Eternal. How does he open up?
And I mean, it worked for Nova, maybe it'll work for We Are Eternal. Indeed, so far it does seem to have, just kind of ducking in and out, getting the opening damage. The follow-up comes in from the tank lineup, and they're just sweeping through this fight without too much difficulty.
And they're able to open up so quickly as well. GrandXur just not able to respond whatsoever. Couldn't quite find the bash onto Kana, couldn't quite stop the damage follow-up either. And just like we did see from Nova with one playing the Doomfist, Kana here is opening up the initial kills for We Are Eternal, forcing now a very quick swap on the GrandXur, which is a good adaptation. It's going to be Sombra, it's going to be the Pharah, and specifically the Sombra is going to shut down Kana very well if he can land the hack.
Well, unless Kana can find a sort of aerial Doomfist, the likes of what one was able to achieve Maybe that's the gold standard of Meteor Strikes for now. But at any rate, Carter getting aggressive on the low ground onto Papillon. Needs to be careful to not stay exposed for too long.
It's already super low.
Oh
Does
boy.
Get down.
Nice wraparound by Hamzy to secure that. This is an opening now for GrandXur.
Now, this is exactly what GrandXur needed. Now they just got to get a couple more kills. Blueberry's going to extend this one a little bit.
Yeah, good force back onto Papillon. It buys a lot more time in the fight. Hugo off to the side is going to have to pop a Transcendence and does come into Hamzy's rescue. Heimish staying on the point now. They've actually managed to separate up We Are Eternal, so that's kind of what they need. But Strike on top of the grab. The Strike didn't even get kills. These members were already dead. Heimish got one and then one with the Rocket Barrage before going down. So actually, We Are Eternal hold on to that. GrandXur just a bit too slow on the trigger.
And a little too shy on the cap as well. Couldn't quite get across the line for GrandXur. If they had gotten the cap, you'd see a little bit less progress for GrandXur, but for We Are Eternal rather. But as it is, We Are Eternal just continue climbing up. GrandXur still have nothing on the scoreboard so far. EMP is maybe there soon. Kana does swap back onto the Diva, isn't going to play into the Sombra anymore.
But, I mean, after Night Market, We Are Eternal, it was already time for giving. Now they've got no ultimates at their disposal. They are completely drained dry. So this is GrandXur's opportunity.
So losing a lot of time though, nearly 80%. That's the opening pick. It's going to be important.
They've got EMP as well. You see Heimish coming onto the side. They're looking to layer those two ultimates together. There's the EMP now committed, but Heimish unfortunately died. And that's a sound barrier to keep We Are Eternal in the fight. It's GrandXur who are actually losing the members. Hamzy was not able to do enough solo damage to follow up on that EMP. And now GrandXur hemorrhaging members on the point. Silvercoin does get rescued by Hugo, but Grab committed to keep them on there as the Transcendence will run out. Kana did lose the mech. Ice down. Heimish able to re-enter, getting some kills in at long last. And Hamzy, second time he's killed Blueberry over the scope of this fight. That's going to be GrandXur finally making some headway on Lijiang Tower.
It's an important second win for GrandXur as well. They had Heimish re-entering the fight, as well as a crucial resurrection onto Papillon, which puts them at player advantage going up against We Are Eternal, who were kind of shut up for the most part by the EMP. Decent counter for the sound barrier by Baksa, but they still couldn't find enough kills to stop GrandXur from reinforcing in time. Going to this next engagement, EMP's backup available soon, as well as a Rocket Barrage, and this is a fight for We Are Eternal Gaming. If Blueberry gets caught in the EMP, they're not going to be able to survive.
Oh, wow, that's a huge barrage off to the side. Gets Amio and Kana in the rotation, and that's all they need in this one. Now We Are Eternal, you know, a few... This is just not a great situation for them. They're still stuck in this kind of intermediary area between the point. Now the EMP lay it on, and they're still just eating damage here. It did cost an extra ultimate for GrandXur, you'll say that much, and We Are Eternal with some ults in pocket, but it's a win for GrandXur.
And this is the issue for GrandXur though. Despite winning that, and they were forced to use more ultimates because they weren't confident to win the fight without them, which is the issue when you're going up against a 99% cap on the other side, but they wanted to save the EMP. It was a 6 versus 4 scenario, but just lacking the initial follow-up after the Rocket Barrage was finished, so they had to play the EMP into it.
Now, We Are Eternal rotating onto the point. This time they've got a lot of tools at their disposal. They made it in. GrandXur don't have much to go off here. Ice.
Oh, I think they got stunned.
Yeah, I think it did. Blueberry got caught out in this as well. Self-destruct forward on top of the grab, though. It could be big.
Wow.
It is big. And that getting Heimish as well is huge. Now it's only Hamzy doing the damage. Silver Coin finished off. It's just Marlon and Hamzy. And Hamzy does not provide Marlon the safety he needs. He will go down here. And at 99%, good late DMAC on Kana, but GrandXur need to get back on this point fast.
And they can still contest this. They can still fight because they have the EMP soon. Just have to wait for Hamzy to respawn. Heimish needs to stay alive as well. The barrage has to do work.
Marlon swapped onto Lucio so he can get back to the point quicker, and that leaves Heimish high and dry. He does not have the Mercy in pocket. Trying to get in for a Rocket Barrage as well. Finally channels it, but he's down already. He was already too low when that started. Now the EMP lay it in, but they weren't able to sync it up with the barrage, so no follow-up to come out. And GrandXur just getting picked apart on what is their last fight on the point here. We Are Eternal. They're going to be able to hold on tight for the extra little bit, get the overtime ticking down 99 to 90. Certainly more competitive from GrandXur, but ultimately the map will belong to We Are Eternal.
Yeah, it should be over any time now as GrandXur just trying to get back on, but not enough members there. You can sort of see how impactful that last fight was, the previous second to last fight, I should probably say here, where despite GrandXur winning, they still had to play the extra ultimates and then only had a Transcendence to defend against both a grab and a shit. And that's going to leave them 0-1 down and 1-0 up for We Are Eternal Gaming going into the second map of the series coming up soon.
And I mean, we did expect that We Are Eternal would probably look good on Control. They've tended to play well on Control, even won it against some very high-ranked teams in this group, even in matchups where they've gone up to lose. So this part is kind of no surprise. I think the part that is maybe a surprise was the shutout on Night Market. I mean, that was just completely outclassing GrandXur. Gardens did get a bit more competitive, but even then, when We Are Eternal were winning, they did look a cut above GrandXur. Indeed, it felt like GrandXur were just kind of running on a couple of key ultimates, not always able to sort of kickstart that macro machine, keep the ultimate economy rolling. It was just a couple of fights getting the 90%, and then ultimately it was going to go back the way of We Are Eternal. It felt a bit inevitable.
I think when you look at that first round as well on Night Market, it was basically GrandXur not being able to play the game whatsoever. It was completely one-sided for We Are Eternal Gaming. They dictated every single fight. They had a lot more ultimates, overtaking other members on the opposite side multiple times as well. And for GrandXur, just never having an opportunity to use those backed up ults. Going onto Gardens, what you can say was great was the adaptation to go onto Sombra, to go onto the Pharah up against the Doomfist, who had a pretty decent start. Khan was forced to change back on the Diva pretty quickly as well. And you have to say as well, the EMP and the Sombra had a decent mileage, but almost wasn't good enough just because it just came down to the last few moments. The deficit was too big. 0-99 was what they started on. And I mean, at that sort of point, you are going to get desperate. You know you can't afford to drop fights, and that's when panic plays start to really sit in for the team. And this is unfortunately the case where they don't get to win that round, which then loses them Lijiang Tower overall, because that was the situation they were in.
I mean, it's kind of inevitable as well. Over the course of going all the way up to 99%, your opponent will get an opportunity for at least one very favorable fight there. So, like you said, no margin for error. You can't lose a single fight there. And when your opponent's already on 99%, when they win that fight back off you, they're all but guaranteed to actually close out the game. I will give credit where it's due. GrandXur did actually have an opportunity to stall out. The respawns kind of came in at an ideal time for it, but again, the individual execution hasn't quite been able to be there. They don't just straight up out frag We Are Eternal, which is what you kind of need in those situations, especially coming in as they were to what was effectively a 4 versus 5 at the time. Yep. On the whole, I mean, look, it is just We Are Eternal playing better on that map. Whether that continues moving forward is another story, but they are still the team we favor coming into this matchup. They have set themselves up as 1-0. We do expect that trend to continue, and at the very least, it's still on GrandXur to step it up and answer.
And I would have still liked to have seen potentially what would have happened on Control Center. Is that going to be a different story? Do you suddenly have a case where if both teams do run a mirror and you're sort of maybe predicting that would be the case? That being said, though, there was technically a mirror on Night Market as well, but just a different type of map, I suppose. Going to Control Center, if the story is going to be any different, or is it going to be a repeated Night Market? We did see the Rhine Goats playing to Rhine Goats. It was super one-sided.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that GrandXur might have been able to punch back a little bit, but you'll never get to see it because both the rounds, especially one of them, even the second one, the 99-0 as a start is already very commanding. So
yeah,
that's just something we'll have to think about. But what we don't have to think too hard about is what's coming up next. So it's going to be the hybrid map here, and it will be Numbani.
And I think this is an interesting call out of GrandXur. I would say it's a very smart call because, I mean, let's get real. The one mirror matchup we did actually see, this is referring to GOAT specifically on Night Market. I mean, GrandXur were a few facial hairs short of a GOAT. So I think it's smart to avoid maps where you're going to see more of a mirror matchup. You've got a lot more options for verticality. You've got a lot of other things you can run. And I mean, the nature of the beast with hybrid anyway is you tend to not see a flat GOATs v GOATs on point A at least. And especially with Numbani, you can continue running things like a dive if you're running that. You know, you've got the Doomfist and Genji kind of compositions. You've got people running Pharahs these days. And you can keep doing that on the offense through the streets phase. The defense could be a little hairier for GrandXur, though.
I do also think as well, if I'm not too mistaken, we've seen a decent amount of Numbani specifically from GrandXur.
Yeah.
More than most teams, I'd like to be able to say as well. But we are going to head into the map now, so let's go ahead and see what happens.
one building with the horns is meant to be like a gazelle or an ibex or something, but it just makes me think of a goat these days.
Which is very relevant because, I mean, you don't actually see a decent amount of goats specifically on defense, but that's exactly what's going to happen here. Hamzy should spot it out. This should be just a scouting Sombra, but at the same time, if you know the other team's running Ryan goats, maybe you stay on the Sombra.
I convinced someone recently that they call it goats comp because goats have rectangular pupils, and with all the shields, there's a lot of rectangles in goats comp, but we are Eternal.
It's a stretch, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, I convinced the person. But at the very least, GrandXur going to make a bit of an adaptation to deal with that goat. So scout it out, very nicely done.
Which is the strength of the attacking team here as well. Free compositional change for them.
Good wrap around onto Kana, getting some opening damage. Actually forces We Are Eternal back. This is where the goats comp actually can have a bit of a hard time if it's getting forced into these tight spots and can't fight back out into the open space.
Look at that.
Third going over to GrandXur already, and that's just sheer pressure.
It's a lot of progress. You see the crossfire as well. Heimish is basically uncontested. Kana's going to make an attempt, but it's very futile.
Yeah, I mean, at least he does get back. They preserve the mech, and I was going to say Ison's life, but not anymore. And now they've actually just got to kind of pile on to it because the cap's about to go over, and that's already with a numbers deficit. GrandXur just kind of played that to its logical conclusion. Not even any counter kills coming in.
And now this is the other part that's really good as well. If we're trying to keep playing goats, Heimish can stay on the far. If they change, Heimish, because he just used Rocket Barrage, can just choose to go back and swap without any sort of loss in terms of the ultimate department. And so for GrandXur, very smart from them. Do see out that there's a Sombra and a Genji. Now gets to get that free changeover.
I do like this very much. Hamzy sticking on the Sombra is I mean, dying there was a bit rough, but normally you'd say stay.
He might have got hacked out.
He must have been, I have to say. But normally, coming up on that EMP, it's a good way to win the next fight and keep that ultimate economy in your favor. But unfortunately, dying there kind of throws a spanner in that.
Now, Brigitte getting double value here against both AVRL and Jasmine on the Genji and the Sombra. Should be able to see We Are Eternal Gaming attempt to try something with the Transcendence.
Yeah, there goes the EMP, but the counter is in from Blueberry. So now GrandXur didn't quite get the connection they needed on that ultimate. Papillon actually hacked out by Jasmine for the time being. Just going to get back into it now. GrandXur really need to lean into these tank ultimates.
They have a lot of ults to play with as well, including their own Transcendence. They can save Jasmine super low.
And a little in the thick of it as well. Marlon going down though to self-destruct as Kana was out of the mech, didn't quite die either. Silvercoin as well getting finished off. So We Are Eternal just on this defense, constantly able to slow up GrandXur and stop their plans short.
You can see now Marlon finally does change on to the Lucio after playing a bit of Mercy. He didn't swap off when Heimish did, and I think that really did affect some of that last fight as well, because they didn't have the speed boost compared to Boxer and We Are Eternal, who does have the speed boost. It's very different from how GrandXur want to approach their fights. They can't just go and engage the way they normally would if you had the Lucio, but now that they do, maybe they can get something done. There is a Transcendence to counter out the EMP when it comes through.
You've got to say, credit to Hamzy, already with another EMP about to be available for himself. Jasmine decides to not quite commit to that one. They're looking to just layer that on with the Dragon Blade.
Which now gives sort of the ball over to GrandXur. It's on their side of the court now.
Not anymore, as it's robbed back from by Jasmine rather, forced to Transcendence there to keep Jasmine alive. And AVRL actually didn't commit a Dragon Blade. I don't believe he could. The counter EMP able to stop that one up. Silvercoin low, but saved by Hugo's Transcendence. I say that a bit too soon, now out of the mech. AVRL decides now's the time to strike. Looking for someone on the retreat, might find Hamzy, no, translocated away.
AVRL, no.
That's no value whatsoever from the Dragon Blade. AVRL, ouch.
And that's the thing, GrandXur, they did have the counter EMP in play. Both teams wanted to get in there first. And because Hamzy was able to use that, because the Transcendence was available as well, and then the follow-up from AVRL not quite hitting the mark, himself now going over to his own Brigitte. Both teams will be mirrored up in terms of compositions, but GrandXur are the ones pushing. GrandXur are the ones getting progress.
We Are Eternal are only just kind of slowing it, and it's also temporary, but with Papillon going down to kind of self-destructed, as GrandXur getting slowed this time around. Jasmine ready. Do have to say, the payload hasn't got too far in the last minute.
And it's nearly there though. Jasmine just needs to get healed up, and then We Are Eternal Gaming can go back in for another contest. Marlon and Hugo don't have defensive ultimates yet, so the timing is very precise right now.
Good aggressive move, Jasmine. He catches a couple, and it's just enough to leverage Ison's dive forwards. They find Silvercoin and Heimish. Silvercoin being EMP'd as he was, could not self-destruct to preserve the mech. Even Hugo might go down here. He will get back to base. But again, We Are Eternal keeping GrandXur at bay.
It's actually a decent amount of members getting out with their lives to GrandXur. They did trade onto Blueberry, which means if they're quick about this, GrandXur can start the next fight, especially with EMP, before Blueberry is ready into the fight. But at the same time, if you are Hamzy, you do want to catch, ideally, both support members who are now back in the fight.
And it's going to be hard for Hamzy to get it. That's the thing, actually. Blueberry can position very safely and still have all the good sides.
Pressures
hack on Hamzy by Jasmine. Stops that EMP for that little bit longer, but We're Eternal needs to leverage that time. EMP right on top of an already running Transcendence means they do not get what they were after. Kana did use his mech still. The Cap sneaking over in that. That's a bit of a whiff by We're Eternal, who hadn't really lost the fight yet, but now are losing the fight, and that's after the Cap went over. This is disaster for We're Eternal.
And I was about to compliment We're Eternal Gaming because you see Blueberry's position there, right in the middle of the EMP, but he sees the timing so well, gets that Transcendence off in perfect timing, but for We're Eternal Gaming, forced off the cart, didn't quite play the objective, and GrandXur sneak one through. Now get to change their composition after capping. Hamzy straight on the Zarya, Papillon onto the Ryan as well. We're Eternal now, just waiting for this EMP, and then afterwards Jasmine will change as well.
Yeah, they've got just enough time to make this work as well, GrandXur. They've got 2 minutes remaining. You can charge up the ultimates, weather the EMP, and then come back in.
Very defensive position for GrandXur. They've been caught out somewhat.
Yeah, nice EMP, but they do have to force themselves from very far forward. It still pays off, though, as they find Papillon. And it was unlikely to fail at any rate. So, pretty expected fight win from We're Eternal, but now this is where the tempo swings back the way of GrandXur, potentially.
And GrandXur did actually end up committing a sound barrier there, so they were somewhat baiting the EMP through. The sound barrier just not quite able to protect them. Jasmine is somewhat behind Hamzy. In fact, he's a decent amount behind Hamzy, so that's going to hurt their progress. But Ison has a lead over Papillon on the other hand.
Self-destruct just kind of lobbed forward to force the hand of We're Eternal, forces them right back, even losing Kana's mech still. That's something. It's actually a decent something. Makes things a lot safer for these members moving forward as the payload is getting marched upwards as well.
Just waiting for respawners on We're Eternal. They only lost one member. The cart does get open, which means GrandXur can finally find an open space.
Ison's already got a shatter. Can't quite say the same for Papillon. As I said, goes down. The first casualty off the back of Ison's shatter. Right as he was at 99%. That's a little rough, but them's the breaks as GrandXur, speaking of breaks, puts the fight on extreme halt, I would say. They're forced back to base, even losing Hamzy in the retreat. Now Heimish as well. Good moves by We're Eternal to rout GrandXur.
And this one is a little bit more of a cleanup. Still only 3 members though, out of 6, so GrandXur do escape with most of their lives. They're very important not to feed additional ult charges over. And you can sort of see Jasmine was at a decent deficit against Hamzy. Now has actually overtaken him in terms of grabs. Less than 30 seconds remaining, and GrandXur have lost so much time and still have so much progress yet to take.
Lost so much of it on the street space, but still just enough at their disposal here.
Good
but
counter.
Yeah, not when you get counted out on that Earth Shatter. Now the self-destruct layered in on top. GrandXur gonna very quickly drop in that fight. I mean, it was a decent shatter from Papillon, but you just can't follow that one up. This is maybe gonna be a forced overtime to come out at Silver Coin. Will dive for the payload now, but won't last very long on it.
So about the point now, where for GrandXur, they don't even have members.
Marlon's turn.
Just gonna have to try and trickle on as best they can.
Marlon's just trying to flirt with it, but while he's
Look
doing
at where the
that,
fight's happening.
Yeah, GrandXur. This is really smart. They actually forced an overextension from We're Eternal. We're Eternal tried to cut off the members regrouping on top of Marlon, ended up actually winning that fight, at least dropping Ison. They've given themselves a window.
And this is where We're Eternal kind of went back to deal with Marlon, or at least scare him away. And because that happened, they didn't have enough members to push into GrandXur, who still have an opening here, but there are still ults coming up for We're Eternal.
It's still tough. They've got an opportunity, but they have not quite capitalized on it just yet. That's going to be a sound barrier.
Ison on Papillon, yeah.
Heimish saved by the sound barrier from Marlon, but that's really all they've got left to run on, unless Silvercoin gets a huge self-destruct. Gonna try and go for it now. Throws it up into the air, but so many shields at play here. Still finds Jasmine, but he throws out the grab right as he was about to go down. It's enough to find Marlon and Hamish. It's enough to start getting these respawns in for We're Eternal.
Hamzy's gotta live.
Everyone safe as Hamzy gets dropped so close to a grab as he was. And ultimately, We're Eternal just start to turn the tide here with the respawn advantage. Papillon on his back. That self-transcendence rather going to run out. Papillon goes down. Self-destruct from Kana. Finds Hugo. Silvercoin gets the mech. And that's going to be it for GrandXur on the point.
And to be fair, GrandXur probably would have lost a lot earlier, but they managed to push the cart all the way to the end point, not quite finishing the map, but nearly. That's a very good effort considering the position they were just in, and I really want to highlight Blueberry on the side of We're Eternal. I'm a little disappointed we're not in Hollywood because this man's got the fastest fingers in the West, able to get his Transcendence in just in the nick of time, so many times in a row. Whether it's EMP coming through, he's in the middle of the thick of it, gets that Transcendence in there, finds timing. It's an Earth Shatter coming through. He's in the middle of everyone. Everyone else around him gets shattered. He has a Transcendence at the exact perfect timing. A, to save everyone, and B, to keep himself alive. Very well played.
On the whole, again, you've got to say relatively competitive experience from GrandXur, but competitive showing, that's the word I'm looking for. Don't know why experience came to mind, just words are very difficult. But ultimately, they didn't get the cap over. They were slowed up a lot on the streets phase, and we did also say we expect their defense to be the harder half of this map as well. So let's see if they can pull it out. They do have the opportunity, but we do still favor We Are Eternal.
I think for GrandXur as well, they're just kind of flirting with the idea of running Hamzy on a soldier, which was something we did see around about week 1.
Flirting but playing coy.
They're going to keep We Are Eternal at a distance, at least for the time being. Maybe not too much longer, because they are going to go Winston Goats. And similar to what we saw before, it does now give We Are Eternal the opportunity to sort of assess the situation. This is just a replay of that moment where the overtime sort of really went poorly at the beginning, at least for We Are Eternal.
Yeah.
Ison went a little deep there, got a little bit too hungry. What we did see a lot of was Ison versus Papillon, Ryan versus Ryan. Ison killed Papillon a lot, but not that time.
Not that one time when it mattered the most. Jasmine has snuck into this one, didn't quite get detected by Silver Point, and now the rotation comes in. GrandXur not able to get any kills in that rotation. Kana does get a little low.
Everyone's kind of made it so far. They're taking a bit of damage, but otherwise they're unhurt. They are contesting the point now, which forces GrandXur's hand.
Great collapse on Jasmine to pop him. Now Marlon, low as he was, stays alive. Papillon gets traded with Ison. So GrandXur still holding a lead in this fight.
Hugo's positioning's fantastic.
Such an untouchable spot right here. Ambio going really low, will eventually go down. The double stun is cute, but it is Ambio the casualty. So first push from We Are Eternal rebuffed.
Absolutely nuts. Both Marlon and Hugo were the biggest fraggers in that last fight as well, coming up on the kill feed. Hugo's position, as you said, untouchable. He's like the DPS. If you were a soldier or a McCree, this is exactly where you would stand. And he was putting up the damage, as you could see as well. We Are Eternal now, going to make a couple changes, or just one. Jasmine going on to the Zari, going to re-attempt to approach that high ground, force the supports for GrandXur off.
Says a lot, though, that Blueberry is still matching Hugo in ult charge for the most part, but Ison not matching Papillon in terms of being alive. And Heimish going to be the support to collect kills this time around. GrandXur very well set up on this defense.
A little bit of a change of pace as well. Usually you see Papillon going down quite early, but that was when he was playing Ryan. Now he's playing Winston, Primal Rage available. GrandXur nearly sitting on 6 ultimates. They're ready to continue defending this, and We Are Eternal are not set up to be able to take a very favorable fight. Maybe Ison gets a shatter, but there's got to be double defensive ultimates available. Nowhere near the grab for Jasmine.
Rotation from We Are Eternal. Now they need to fight their way on to the point. They force GrandXur somewhat onto the low rounds. Oh, nice counter shatter. The self-destruct from Silvercoin really stopped up short thanks to that. Now, a little bit low off to the side here is Heimish, gets rescued, self-destruct forward from Kana, didn't find anything either. So, We Are Eternal are now in a very unfortunate spot where they're slowly getting forced back. They are not anywhere near their spawn. They're on the complete wrong side of this, can't retreat, can't rotate, and are just going to slowly and surely get picked off.
And that means it's going to be a full team wipe as well. It's not going to be like last time where We Are Eternal actually get to crawl back to base, limping and all. This time around, it's going to be all 6 members going down one way or another, and GrandXur happy to collect as many of them as they can. You could actually see the confidence there from Hugo. Once again, completely untouched. The Earth Shatter came through from Ison. He doesn't transcend it because he knows it's not going to be enough damage, and if it is, then he is going to transcend it. Finally, he does use it after the Shatter was used, and it lets GrandXur push directly into We Are Eternal Gaming and completely route them out.
This time, though, We Are Eternal do have a couple of ultimates at their disposal, notably the grab. Hamzy will soon be matching, but it's an advantage for the time being. Committed now on the point. They don't get anyone. That's so bad. This is not the spot We Are Eternal want to be in, and again, they're in this unfortunate position. At least the sound barrier didn't do too much for GrandXur. Now Bax's sound barrier on top of the grab out of Hamzy, who gets picked up. Finally, We Are Eternal making some headway. Papillon low. They need to finish him off. Silvercoin self-destruct, doesn't find anything. Will remake though. As the Transcendence from Hugo about to run out. That's a
GrandXur
pick on
need
Mal.
kills.
That's a pick on Hugo. They've finally cracked this one open. We are Eternal. GrandXur need kills, but they are not getting them this time around. 30 seconds on the clock. It'll be just about 20 by the time the cap goes over, but We Are Eternal are finally underway.
It started out so well for GrandXur, but as the Graviton Surge came through for Hamzy, he goes down. They lose so much of their damage. Silver going to the self-destruct was super late. That only came down after the Graviton Surge had already dissipated, so GrandXur could not follow up to get the kills. Then you also had the sound barrier from Buck, so We Are Eternal lived through the ultimates. They lived through the point. They do get the cap, and GrandXur, despite surviving through it with Graviton Surge from Jasmine, they whipped the rest of their defense.
This is where Papillon kind of has to change onto the Reinhardt as well. He doesn't have to, but he does at least opt to. There's a solid argument for it, and this is where Ison has generally edged him out. Good stun on Papillon. And that's a shatter as Papillon is bumped up, and D gonna die as he tries to charge back to what is the relative safety of his team, but I don't even know if you can call it that, as now that team is getting absolutely slam dunked. That's going to be We Are Eternal maintaining momentum.
And this is where We Are Eternal get to make up for lost time as well. It was a super slow push onto A, but B so far is looking one-sided. GrandXur don't have the tools to play with. We Are Eternal Gaming about to rotate into some more ultimates. Jasmine on the Graviton Surge looking for a little bit of redemption after the last ult. Needs to be able to land something good here. GrandXur can still possibly get there in time. Decide not to.
And this is amazing. 25 seconds on the clock when they capped A. They come into C with more time than what GrandXur did. GrandXur only had 2 minutes 20. Ison, Discord Orb, but he's going to be just fine. Barry does die, but they can reset.
So now GrandXur, they need some more of these ultimates. Hugo nearly on Transcendence is important because they need something to counter out the Graviton Surge. Hamzy has his own counter surge soon as well. Look at Silvercoin though, needs to pressure out Jasmine.
Was looking for an angle on the side to take Jasmine's grab by surprise, but got found out. Self-destruct forward, laid very nicely.
Nice
Finds
charge.
Papillon. Nicely done. Now Heimish getting absolutely drilled down by damage. The Earth Shatter is huge. That's going to be all the follow-up they need. It completely breaks that point of hold. Now GrandXur will get one last shot at defending.
Now this is exactly where you see GrandXur once again not having the opportunity to play the game. It's always We Are Eternal coming through, initiating first, finding the fight. GrandXur on the back foot, waiting for members. Now as we do approach this final engagement, there are ultimates, but GrandXur need a hit.
They're really going to have to connect. The grab is going to be the first one. That one does land. Papillon is down already though. Silvercoin, nice layering, and Ison will go down. Ambio, Jasmine scattered to the
Double
full whip
skid.
and very low. So Jasmine's down. Kana's going to get dropped as he was out of the mech. Ambio as well. Blueberry and Baxter retreat safely, but you cannot say the same for the rest of We Are Eternal.
And GrandXur just get to wipe a sweat off the brow there. They needed to win that fight so badly. We Are Eternal Gaming still get to come through though. Managed to save both their support ultimates. Didn't commit it against the Graviton Surge combo that GrandXur had in that defense. But We Are Eternal, they get to go into their tank ults again. Ison and Jasmine, it's been this duo. They've been winning this game for We Are Eternal. And right now, if they get these ults, they might win it still.
Papillon does get a shatter out. It's going to be enough to find Ambio. Blueberry Transcendence, but not enough to save Ambio, and that means We Are Eternal have to make hay while the sun's shining here. Block shatter indeed as Ison goes down to a fire strike. Papillon kind of hitting his stride here. That was a real big loss for We Are Eternal. It's not just losing the fight and the time, it's committing the ultimates as well.
Two of them as well. Blueberry used the Transcendence. One of the few times that we do actually see Papillon outplaying Ison. It's been the other side. It's been the other way around for most of the two maps we've seen so far. And GrandXur finally, with 1 minute remaining now, coming up to their own big ults, big ticket buys here. GrandXur can actually defend this. We Are Eternal are very prescient.
They've got a sound barrier. They've got to grab self-destruct if they can layer. That's what they're relying on. Jasmine's got to make this one count. Throws it out, double grab. Kana cannot throw the self-destruct forward, and Silvercoin charges forward, finds a couple. Yeah, smart to not commit the self-destruct there, Kana, as he went out of the mech. They've got just enough time for one last fight.
There's a slow kill into Blueberry.
Oh,
Oh no, that's going to really hurt We Are Eternal. They barely have time as it is, and they do not want to be waiting for supports right now. And both teams do not have a Graviton Surge. Papillon will have an Earth Shatter. Ison for the first time is not ahead in terms of that Earth Shatter ultimate. And GrandXur, Papillon, he outplayed Ison before and he's going to need to do it again.
They needed that grab self-destruct. Now it's just a double self-destruct. Who gets more mileage? The answer is neither. Sound barrier.
Oh, whips.
Ooh, big whip on the shatter. but as they press forward with Hugo's Transcendence running to get back, and
Ison's
Amgyo
dead.
low, they haven't got the shatter, the counter shatter. This is Ison hitting his stride, swinging the hammer, finds all those 5 kills between the team. It's just Silvercoin coming out on the respawn.
And right now, we are Eternal Gaming about to push this one to the terminus. Blueberry has a Transcendence, GrandXur have nothing. And this is going to be it. The team that caps this one, we're Eternal. If they get it, they win. There's no overtime.
Hamzy, they're a little bit closer to a grab. Jasmine sorely needs one. Icing stun stays alive. Papillon needs to charge up a shatter as well. Hamzy's looking for a grab angle, but Jasmine's coming up on his first. Double rally out. Jasmine, Hamzy, both still alive. Papillon found Amgyo. Who's going to get the shatter? Who's going to get the kills? Silvercoin's out of the back. The shatter gets blocked from Papillon, but the grab from Hamzy connects. Jasmine still not got his grab. Ison's down. Jasmine finally grabs, but they cannot follow it up. And GrandXur are going to force We Are Eternal back for the last time and even up the series. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a match on our hands.
It has been a while since I've seen a 1-1, and my God, I have missed it. This is exactly what we are here for, and the margins in that match were so close. We started out Lijiang Tower. We're Eternal Gaming. Not too uncomfortable there, a 2-0 in terms of rounds and scoring, but going on to Numbani, tight margins. I mean, that we didn't go to a time bank. There was no possibility of going to a time bank. What was a completed hold onto C by We're Eternal to start with ends up being a failed push onto C themselves when GrandXur get to defend. And even right towards the end there, you see one team get, it was Papillon needed to find the shadow, completely whiffs. Ison lands a 4-5 man.
Huge.
Getting the cart towards the end, but in the final hour, it was still GrandXur that are able to clutch on through. Now, we will continue this match very soon, but for now, we are going to take a bit of a break. But when we do come back, the 1-on-1 series does continue. Who's going to take the lead here? We'll find out right after this break.